My name is Evelyn Hart, and I was 37 the week my parents showed me exactly how little my grief was worth to them. I was standing in the back of a funeral chapel with rainwater on my shoes, staring at 2 framed photographs beside 2 white candles. When my phone buzzed in my coat pocket, my husband Caleb was in the first photograph. Our son Noah was in the second. Caleb was 39, Noah was 7. The front row, the one the funeral director had marked with a small card that said immediate family, was half empty because my parents and my brother were not there. They were on a cruise, not delayed, not sick, not unable to travel, on a cruise. My mother had texted the night before and said, "We already paid for the cabins, Evelyn. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. It's a sad service, but life has to go on." My brother Marcus replied in the family group chat, "Exactly. It's not like us standing there changes anything." Then my father added, "We'll honor them privately when we get back." Privately, as if my husband and child were a calendar inconvenience. As if grief was a meeting they could reschedule. I did not answer them. I stood in that chapel with my hands folded so tightly, my knuckles looked bloodless, and I watched people who were not related to me by blood show up in work boots, uniforms, raincoats, and tired faces. Caleb's crew from the electrical company came. Noah's second-grade teacher came and brought a folder full of drawings from his classmates. The crossing guard from his school came. Our neighbor Mr. Alvarez came with his oxygen tank and a casserole his daughter had made. My mother's seat stayed empty. My father's seat stayed empty. Marcus's seat stayed empty. And when my phone buzzed again beside the guest book, I looked down and saw a photo my sister-in-law had posted from the cruise deck. My parents were smiling in matching blue shirts. Marcus was holding a cocktail. His wife had captioned it, "Making memories with the people who matter." I looked from that photo to Noah's picture on the easel. My son was missing one front tooth in the photo. He was holding a cardboard rocket he had built with Caleb at our kitchen table. There was glue on his sleeve and pride all over his face. People who matter. Something inside me went very quiet, not dead. There is a difference. 5 days later, my mother called me from the airport baggage claim, not to ask how I was sleeping, not to ask whether I had eaten, not to ask if I needed help packing away a 7-year-old boy's dinosaur pajamas. She called to ask for money, $65,000, for Marcus, for his failing lakeside restaurant, for his children, for the family. And when I did not answer fast enough, she said the line that finally cut the last thread between us. "Evelyn, be reasonable. You don't have a husband or child to provide for anymore. Marcus still has a family to save." I was sitting at my kitchen table when she said it. Caleb's work boots were by the back door. Noah's blue backpack was still hanging on the chair where he had dropped it the Friday before everything ended. I looked at that backpack, at the little keychain shaped like a rocket, and I felt the woman I used to be stand up and leave the room. The old Evelyn would have cried. The old Evelyn would have explained. The old Evelyn would have reminded her mother that Caleb and Noah were not expenses erased from a budget, but that woman had been buried beside them. So I asked one quiet question. "What exactly do you think you're entitled to?" My mother sighed, irritated now. "Don't start. We know Caleb had life insurance. We know there's a settlement coming. We know you'll be comfortable. Marcus is drowning, and if your brother loses that restaurant, his children lose everything." "Mom," I said, my voice steady in a way that frightened even me, "you skipped my son's funeral." There was a pause, then she said, "This isn't about punishing us for a difficult travel decision. A difficult travel decision. That was what they called it, not absence. Not abandonment, a travel decision." I looked at the green funeral guest book sitting on my kitchen counter. The funeral director had handed it to me after the service, wrapped carefully in a plastic sleeve because of the rain. Inside were the names of everyone who had come to say goodbye. On the first page, where family should have signed, there were 3 empty lines: Helen Hart, Robert Hart, Marcus Hart blank. Beside the guest book was a yellow envelope I had found the night before in Caleb's desk drawer, labeled in his handwriting, "If they come asking, open this first." I had not opened it yet. I was afraid to. I was afraid because Caleb was the kind of man who only labeled things when he knew they mattered. My mother was still talking. "You're emotional right now. I understand that. But you need to think long term. Money won't bring them back." "No," I said. "It won't." "Then do something useful with it." Useful. That word had followed me my whole life. I was useful when Marcus needed babysitting, useful when my parents needed rides to appointments, useful when my mother wanted someone to decorate the church hall, useful when my father needed payroll spreadsheets fixed for his landscaping business, useful when Marcus needed someone to watch his kids while he and his wife went to networking dinners for a restaurant that was always one good month away from turning around. But I was never the one protected, never the one chosen, never the one whose pain rearranged anyone's plans. I ended the call without saying goodbye. Then I opened Caleb's yellow envelope. Inside were 3 things: a copy of his life insurance beneficiary form, a sealed letter addressed to me, and a flash drive taped to an index card. On the card, Caleb had written, "Evie, if your family ever asks you to choose them over yourself, watch this before you answer." My husband had been dead for 12 days, and somehow he was still protecting me from people who were alive. Before I tell you what was on that flash drive, I need you to understand my family. My parents were not poor. That matters. They liked people to think everything they did came from sacrifice, but my father owned a landscaping company that had paid for 2 boats, 3 kitchen renovations, and my brother's long list of second chances. My mother, Helen Hart, was the kind of woman who cried beautifully in public. She could put one hand on someone's shoulder and make everyone in the room believe she carried the suffering of the world. At church, people called her devoted. At charity dinners, they called her tireless. At weddings, she was the woman arranging centerpieces before anyone asked. At home, she kept score. If she gave you a ride, it became a debt. If she brought you soup, it became evidence. If she watched your child for one afternoon, it became a story she could tell for 6 months about how much everyone depended on her. My father, Robert, was quieter, which is not the same as kinder. He hid behind the newspaper, the television, the steering wheel, the garage door. Whenever my mother was cruel, he would look down and say, "You know how she is." I did know, that was the problem. And Marcus, my younger brother, was the son they built the whole house around. Marcus was charming in the lazy way of men who have never had to earn forgiveness. He failed upward through childhood. He crashed my father's truck at 17 and got a new one because boys make mistakes. He dropped out of college and got a lease on a restaurant space because school just wasn't his path. He borrowed money from relatives and called it investment. He forgot birthdays, missed holidays, arrived late, left early, and somehow remained the family's golden hope. I was the responsible one. That sounds like praise until you realize it means nobody plans to help you. When I was 9, my mother forgot to pick me up from a school choir concert because Marcus had a stomachache before baseball practice. I sat on the curb in a red dress until the janitor called home. My mother arrived 40 minutes late and told me not to be dramatic because my brother could have been seriously ill. He had eaten 3 hot dogs and vomited. When I was 16, I wanted to attend a summer art program. I had won half a scholarship. I needed my parents to cover the rest. My father said money was tight. 2 weeks later, Marcus got a jet ski for his birthday. When I was 23, I got my first apartment. My mother gave me a set of used towels and said independence would teach me humility. That same year, they paid off Marcus's credit cards because his stress was affecting his confidence. I learned to stop asking. Then I met Caleb. Caleb Miller was not flashy. He was an electrician with rough hands, a slow smile, and the kind of calm that made a room safer just because he walked into it. We met when he came to fix the wiring in the community center where I volunteered. He caught me standing on a chair, trying to hang paper stars from the ceiling and said, "I don't know much about decorations, but I know that chair is plotting against you." I laughed harder than the joke deserved. Maybe because nobody in my family ever noticed when something beneath me was unstable. Caleb did. We married 2 years later in the botanical garden, with 70 people, lemon cake, and Noah kicking inside me during the vows so hard Caleb put his hand on my belly and whispered, "He approves." Noah was born on a rainy Thursday. He had Caleb's dark eyes and my stubborn mouth. He loved rockets, pancakes, picture books about planets, and asking questions right when adults thought he had fallen asleep. He called Marcus Uncle Marky, even though Marcus forgot his birthday twice. He believed my mother when she said she would take him to the aquarium, and he waited by the door for an hour before I finally told him Grandma had gotten busy. Caleb was the first person who ever got angry on my behalf without making me feel guilty for causing it. "She keeps hurting you," he said after the aquarium day. "She's just like that." He looked at me. "Evie, a snake is just like that too. You still don't hand it your child. I defended her then, I wish I had not. But when you grow up thirsty, even dirty water looks like an effort. Caleb never pushed me to cut them off. He understood that families are not doors you slam easily. They are rooms you memorize. Even when they hurt you, you still know where the light switches are. But he started keeping records, not secretly. Just quietly, every time my parents borrowed money, he wrote it down. Every time Marcus asked for help and called it temporary, Caleb saved the text. Every time my mother promised Noah something and canceled, Caleb took a screenshot, not to punish her, but because he said, "One day you're going to wonder if it was really that bad. I want you to have proof for yourself." That was Caleb. He did not raise his voice. He built guardrails. 3 months before the accident, Marcus came to our house asking for a loan, not a small one, $50,000. His restaurant, the Dock Line, was behind on vendor payments, payroll taxes, and equipment leases. He had tried to open a second patio bar too early, and the whole thing was collapsing under him. My parents came with him. They arrived with a folder, a pie, and a tone that said the decision had already been made. "We're all helping," my mother said at our dining table. "Your father and I have put in what we can. Marcus just needs temporary support until summer traffic picks up." Caleb looked at the numbers. "Marcus, this business is insolvent." Marcus laughed. Big word from a wire guy. Caleb did not react. That was one of his talents. "I'm serious. You don't need a bridge loan. You need to close or restructure." My mother's face tightened. "Caleb, this is family. We don't talk to each other like bankers." "No," Caleb said gently. "Bankers at least explain interest rates before they take your house." Marcus stood. "Are you calling me a thief?" "I'm saying you don't have a plan to pay anyone back." My father cleared his throat. "Evelyn, say something." There it was, the old hook. The room turned toward me, waiting for me to soften Caleb, translate Marcus, soothe my mother, and turn my own discomfort into family peace. I looked at Caleb. He looked back, not pleading, not commanding, just present for once. I did not betray myself to keep the table quiet. "No," I said. "We're not giving the money." My mother stared at me as if I had spoken another language. "That's your brother, and Caleb is my husband," Marcus scoffed. "So now he controls you." Caleb closed the folder and slid it back. "No, she controls herself. That's what you're upset about." They left furious. 2 weeks later, my mother sent a text. "When you need family, remember this day." I did remember, just not the way she meant. The accident happened in early April. I will not turn Caleb and Noah into a dramatic scene for strangers. They deserve better than being reduced to the worst moment of their lives. Here is what I can tell you. There was a chain reaction crash on the interstate caused by a commercial truck whose brakes failed coming down a grade. Caleb had picked Noah up early from school because Noah had a dentist appointment. They were stopped in traffic when the truck came through. The police officer who came to my door did not cry. I think about that sometimes, how people learn to deliver the end of someone's world with professional eyes. I remember the officer's hat in his hands. I remember my neighbors screaming because I could not. I remember asking if Noah had been afraid, and the officer not answering fast enough. After that, time became a hallway with no doors, funeral home, caskets, insurance calls, police report, Caleb's employer, school counselor, obituary, photos, clothes, shows, food I did not eat, voicemails I could not return. People say, "I can't imagine." They are lucky, my parents did not come. The official reason was the cruise. The real reason was simpler. My grief was inconvenient. The morning of the funeral, I received a message from Marcus. "Thinking of you today. We'll do something when we're back. Mom's really upset, so don't make her feel worse." I stared at that last sentence until the letters blurred. Don't make her feel worse. My husband and child were dead, and I was still being asked to manage my mother's feelings. At the chapel, the funeral director asked whether we should wait a few minutes for family. I looked at the empty front row. "No," I said. "The people who wanted to be here are here." Those words were the first boundary, small, quiet, almost invisible, but it held. After the burial, the director handed me the green guest book. Dark green cover, gold trim, cream pages. She said, "Families often like to keep this." I almost told her I had no family left. Instead, I thanked her and carried it home. That book sat on my counter for 5 days. Then my mother called for $65,000, and I opened Caleb's yellow envelope. The life insurance beneficiary form was straightforward. Caleb's policy through work was larger than I had realized. I was the primary beneficiary, but attached to it was a handwritten note. Evie, if anything happens to me, this is not guilt money. This is roof money, food money, choice money. Do not let anyone turn our safety net into their emergency. I had to stop reading. Then I opened his sealed letter. My hands shook then. Caleb's handwriting was steady, blocky, familiar. Evie, if you are reading this because something happened to me, I am sorry I am not there to make coffee badly and tell you that your mother is wrong with my whole chest. I know you. You will try to be fair. You will try to be generous. You will try to make sure nobody can accuse you of being cold. That is one of the reasons I love you. It is also the door your family keeps using, Marcus will ask. Your mother will make it sound like duty. Your father will stay quiet until silence becomes agreement. Do not give them anything without watching the drive. That was the line. Do not give them anything without watching the drive. I picked up the flash drive. My laptop took a moment to recognize it. There was one folder, Hart Family Records. Inside were screenshots, scanned checks, loan requests, text messages, and a video file. The video was from our home security camera 3 months earlier, the night after Marcus asked for the $50,000. I clicked play. My parents were standing on our porch. Caleb had walked them out while I stayed inside cleaning dishes and trying not to cry. The porch camera caught all of it. My mother's voice was sharp. You've turned her against us, Caleb said. No, Helen, I helped her hear herself. My father said. You don't understand family, Caleb answered. I understand using the word family to avoid accountability. Then Marcus stepped into frame, angry, pointing at Caleb's chest. You think you're better than us because you have some insurance policy and a steady job? If something happens to you, she'll need us. Caleb's voice went cold. If something happens to me, the last thing she'll need is people who see her as a wallet. My mother laughed. Careful, Caleb. You're not blood. You can be gone tomorrow and we'll still be here. Caleb looked directly toward the camera then, not at them at the camera, as if he knew. Then he said, That's why I keep records. The video ended. I sat in the dark kitchen, shaking so hard my teeth clicked. He had known not that he would die, not that they would skip the funeral. But he had known exactly what they were capable of once grief made me vulnerable. The folder also contained something I had forgotten existed. A promissory note from 5 years earlier, signed by Marcus, for $12,000 he borrowed from us to cover temporary payroll pressure. It had never been repaid. A canceled check to my parents for $8,000 when their roof needed repair. A screenshot of my mother writing, We'll pay you back when Dad's invoice clears. They never did. Another transfer to Marcus. Another emergency. Another family pulls together. The total Caleb had calculated at the bottom of a spreadsheet was $46,700. They were demanding $65,000 from me after already taking nearly $47,000 from us over the years. And they skipped the funeral. I called Caleb's best friend, Ronan Price. Ronan had worked with Caleb for 12 years. He was built like a refrigerator and cried at commercials. He answered immediately. Evie? I opened the envelope. He went quiet. Okay, you knew? Caleb asked me to help him scan some stuff. He said if he ever wasn't around, you'd need someone to remind you that paper doesn't gaslight. That broke me. Not loudly, not dramatically. I folded over the kitchen table with the phone against my ear and cried until my throat hurt. Ronan stayed on the line. He did not tell me to calm down. He did not say Caleb would want me to be strong. He just breathed on the other end so I would know someone was there. When I could speak, I said, They're planning to ask again. They'll do more than ask, he said. Marcus came by our yard yesterday. My head lifted. What? He asked whether the insurance had paid out. Said he was worried you were making emotional decisions and that the family might need to step in. The family might need to step in. There it was again. My grief as incompetence, my money as shared property, my dead husband's warning unfolding in real time. What do? I asked. Ronan said. You call a lawyer, then you let them gather an audience. People like your mother can't resist one. He was right. They could not. For the next 2 weeks. I did not argue. I did not reply to insults. I did not defend myself in group chats. When my mother texted, This bitterness is not what Caleb would want, I saved it. When Marcus wrote, You're going to let my kids suffer because you're mad about a funeral, I saved it. When my father finally texted, Your mother is heartbroken. Please don't embarrass this family, I saved that too. Then my cousin Lydia called. Lydia was not close to me growing up, but she had come to the funeral. She had stood in the rain at the burial and held an umbrella over Noah's teacher without anyone asking. That made her family in a way blood had failed to be. Evelyn, she said carefully, your mother is planning something at their retirement dinner. My parents aren't retired. Your dad is stepping down from the landscaping business. They're throwing a dinner at the community hall. Big one. Relatives, church friends, business contacts. I closed my eyes. Of course, a stage. She's telling people you're spiraling. That Caleb left you well provided for, but you're refusing to help Marcus because grief made you vindictive. I laughed once, not because it was funny. Because the script was so familiar it was almost boring. What are they planning? Lydia hesitated. Your dad is going to make a speech about family sacrifice. Then Marcus is going to ask publicly for support. They think if everyone is watching, you'll either agree or look cruel. There it was, the trap, 2 doors. Both built by them. If I refused, I was selfish. If I agreed, they got the money. The old Evelyn would have stayed home. The old Evelyn would have said, I don't want drama. But Caleb's video sat on my laptop. The green guest book sat on my counter. The cruise photo had a timestamp. And the yellow envelope had given me permission to stop being polite with people who were counting on my manners. What time is the dinner? I asked. Saturday at 6. I'll be there. Lydia exhaled. Do you want me to come with you? Yes, I said, but not beside me. What do you mean? I want you in the room watching their faces. For the next 4 days, I built my case. Not emotionally, cleanly. I printed a timeline. April 4, accident. April 8, funeral. April 8, 10:17 a.m. Family cruise photo posted. April 13. Helen Hart demanded $65,000 from life insurance funds. April 14 through April 29. Repeated demands and accusations. Then I printed the green guest book pages. Not all of them. Just the first page with the family lines blank, and the next pages filled with names of people who came: Mrs. Alvarez, Ronan Price, Noah's teacher, Emily Bell, Caleb's crew, school parents, neighbors, the crossing guard, people who did not share my blood and still understood what a funeral was. I printed the screenshot of the cruise photo. I printed my mother's words. It's a sad service, but life has to go on. I printed Marcus's message. It's not like us standing there changes anything. I printed my mother's demand. You don't have a husband or child to provide for anymore. That one I almost did not include. It felt too ugly. Then I remembered she had said it to me. If I had to carry it, she could survive hearing it. Finally, I copied Caleb's porch video to a second flash drive. I met with a lawyer named Serena Holt, who specialized in estate and insurance issues. She reviewed everything, including the financial records Caleb had saved. Legally, they have no claim to the life insurance, she said. Morally, they have no shame. Those are separate problems. I'm not trying to sue them. Not yet. I looked at her. She smiled without warmth. Evelyn, I've done this long enough to know that people who demand money from grieving widows do not stop because someone asks nicely. She helped me draft a formal no-contact and no-claim letter. She also advised me not to play the porch video unless I was prepared for permanent consequences. I looked at Caleb's paused face on the laptop screen. He had said, "That's why I keep records." I am, I said. The day of the retirement dinner? I woke at 4, not because I needed to, because grief had made sleep into something that visited when it felt like it. The house was dark. I walked into Noah's room. For weeks, I had avoided touching anything. His bed was unmade. His rocket pajamas were on the floor. His library book was overdue. A drawing of Saturn was taped crooked above his desk. I sat on the edge of his bed and picked up the stuffed fox he slept with. "I'm sorry," I whispered. Not because I had done anything wrong, because mothers apologize to their children for storms, flat tires, broken crayons, and death itself if no one stops them. I sat there until the sun came up. Then I got dressed: black pants, a white blouse. Caleb's watch, my wedding ring, Noah's rocket keychain in my pocket, the green guest book in a canvas bag, the yellow envelope in my purse, the flash drive in the small zip pocket where I used to keep emergency crayons for Noah at restaurants. At 5:30, Ronan pulled into my driveway. "I thought I told you I was going alone," I said when I opened the door. "You are," he said. "I'm just driving." I almost smiled. At the community hall, the parking lot was full. My father's landscaping trucks were lined up near the entrance, freshly washed, with green ribbons tied to the mirrors. Inside, there were round tables, white cloths, framed photos of my parents through the years, a slideshow on a screen, and a cake shaped like a garden sign that said, "Robert Hart, 42 years of growing strong. The irony nearly knocked me over. Growing strong. My mother saw me immediately. Her face flashed with triumph. She thought I had come to surrender. She crossed the room in a navy dress and pearls, arms out. "Evelyn," she said loudly, so nearby relatives would hear the wounded tenderness. "You came." I let her hug the air beside me. I did. Her smile tightened. "You look thin. You look rested." That landed. Only for a second, then she recovered. "Let's not start tonight." I wasn't planning to. She lowered her voice. "Your father is going to say a few words. Please don't make this difficult." "There it is," I said. "What?" "Please don't make it difficult. That should be on the family crest." She stepped back, eyes narrowing. Before she could answer, Marcus appeared. He looked tired. I noticed that first. Tired and desperate. The restaurant had aged him. His skin was gray under the tan and his charm had worn thin around the edges. "Evie," he said. "Glad you decided to act like family." I looked at him. "Did you rehearse that?" His jaw tightened. Mallory stood behind him with her phone already in her hand, probably ready to capture whatever version of me they needed later. I walked past them and found Lydia near the back. She squeezed my hand once. "You okay?" "No." Good answer. Dinner was served. People ate chicken, potatoes, salad with too much dressing. They laughed. They hugged my parents. They congratulated my father. They told my mother she deserved rest after all these years. I sat at a table near the side door, with the green guest book in my lap, and thought about the funeral meal I barely remembered, where Noah's teacher wrapped leftover rolls for me, because she knew I would not cook. Halfway through dessert, my father stood with a microphone. The room quieted. My mother sat at the head table with her hands folded, wearing her sorrowful public face. Marcus and Mallory sat beside her. Their children were at another table with cousins, innocent in the way children are before adults spend years teaching them entitlement. My father thanked his employees, he thanked clients, he thanked the church, he thanked my mother for being the heart of the Hart family. Then his voice changed. Softer, heavier, I recognized the performance. "And of course," he said, "family is not just about success. Family is about showing up in hard times. Recently our family has been tested." Several people turned toward me with sympathy. I did not move. My father continued. "Our son Marcus is facing a difficult season with his business, and while some of us have given everything we can, others have been blessed with resources and have forgotten that blessings are meant to be shared." There it was. My mother looked down as if pained. Mallory dabbed her eye with a napkin. Marcus stood. "I don't want to do this," he said, absolutely wanting to do this. "But my family is at risk, my employees are at risk, and I have to ask my sister to remember who stood by her when she had nothing." The room turned fully now, 40, 50, maybe 60 faces waiting, watching the trap was built. I stood, not quickly, not dramatically, just stood. The room seemed to tighten. I picked up my canvas bag and walked toward the front. My mother's eyes flicked to it. For the first time that night, uncertainty crossed her face. I held out my hand for the microphone. My father hesitated. I smiled. "If we're talking about family showing up, I'd like to add context." He did not want to give it to me, but the room was watching, so he did. I turned to the guests. "My father is right about one thing," I said. "Family is about showing up in hard times. So let's start there." I took out the first page. This is the funeral guest book from Caleb and Noah's service. The room went still. My mother whispered, "Evelyn." I kept going. Caleb was my husband. Noah was my 7-year-old son. Their service was on April 8th. The front page had lines reserved for immediate family. I held it up. "They are blank." A murmur moved through the room. I placed the page on the cake table beside the gold retirement decorations. My parents, my brother and my sister-in-law were invited. They did not come. My father's face reddened. "That is not fair." "We had a cruise," I said. Then I took out the screenshot. This photo was posted the next morning. I held it up. My parents smiling in matching blue shirts, Marcus holding a cocktail, Mallory's caption. "Making memories with the people who matter." The room changed. It was subtle at first, a shift in posture, forks lowering. Eyes moving from the photo to my mother. My mother stood. "This is cruel." I looked at her. Yes, it was. Then I took out the printed texts. Before the funeral, my mother called it a sad service. My brother wrote, "It's not like us standing there changes anything." After the funeral, my mother called and demanded $65,000 from Caleb's life insurance because Marcus's restaurant is failing. Marcus snapped, "That is private." So was my grief. I said. You brought it on stage. A few people murmured louder. Mallory stood. We never demanded. We asked for help. I looked at her. You told relatives I was selfish, unstable, and sitting on money I didn't need because my husband and son were gone. She went pale. Lydia stood from the back. I heard that too, she said. From 3 people, and I was at the funeral. They were not. My mother pointed at Lydia. This is none of your business. Lydia did not sit. You made it everyone's business when you lied to everyone here. The room turned further. My father reached for the microphone. I stepped back. Not yet. I pulled out the next page. Since Marcus mentioned who stood by me when I had nothing, I want to talk about that too. I looked at Marcus. Over the last 8 years, Caleb and I gave this family $46,700 in unpaid loans, emergency transfers, and business support. Marcus shouted, "Those weren't loans." "You're right," I said. "Some were gifts, some were loans. All of them came from the people you skipped burying." The room went silent again. That line landed harder than I expected. Maybe because for the first time I said Caleb and Noah not as memories, but as people who had been wronged by everyone in that room who believed my family's version. My mother's public masks began to crack. "Stop this," she said. "You are humiliating your father." "No," I said. "I'm correcting the minutes." Then I took out the flash drive. Marcus saw it and froze. He did not know what it was. My mother did, not specifically. But mothers like mine can smell proof before it opens. I turned to the young man running the slideshow. "Can you play a video file?" He looked terrified, then Lydia said, "I can." She walked to the laptop, took the drive, and within 30 seconds, Caleb's porch video appeared on the screen behind me. The room saw my parents on my porch, Marcus pointing, my mother saying, "You're not blood. You can be gone tomorrow, and we'll still be here." Caleb's voice filled the hall. "If something happens to me, the last thing she'll need is people who see her as a wallet." Then my mother laughed on screen. "Careful, Caleb." The video ended. No one spoke, not one person. My mother sat down as if her knees had stopped belonging to her. Marcus stared at the screen. My father looked older than he had 10 minutes earlier. I took the microphone again. Caleb recorded that 3 months before he died. He kept records because he knew I would doubt myself. He knew that when the time came, my family would call me selfish for protecting myself. He was right. My voice shook then, only once. I let it. I buried my husband and my son while my parents were on a cruise. 5 days later, they asked me for money. Tonight, they tried to turn this room into pressure. So here is my answer in front of the witnesses they chose. I looked at Marcus. "I will not give you $65,000, then my father. I will not apologize for surviving, then my mother. And I will never again let you use the word family as a weapon against me." My mother started crying. Real or not, I no longer cared. "Evelyn," she whispered, "I lost them too." Something in me went cold. "No," I said, "you lost access to what they left behind. That is not the same thing." The room inhaled. Mary grabbed her purse and walked out first. Marcus followed, then stopped in the doorway and turned back. For 1 second I saw the scared man beneath all the entitlement. "Evie," he said quietly, "I'm going to lose everything." The old me would have moved toward him, the sister, the fixer, the girl who packed his lunches, but Noah's rocket keychain was in my pocket, pressing into my palm, so I said, "Then you should have come when I lost everything." He left. My father did not speak. My mother tried once more. "You'll regret being alone." I looked around the room, at Lydia, at Ronan standing by the back door because apparently he had not stayed in the truck after all, at Caleb's coworker who had come because Lydia texted him, at Noah's teacher, who had been invited by someone from church and now sat with tears on her face. "I'm not alone," I said. "I was alone in the front row because you were gone. There's a difference." Then I set the microphone down beside the cake and walked out. Nobody clapped. This was not that kind of victory. But as I reached the door, an older woman from my mother's church stood and moved her purse off the chair beside her, as if creating space for a truth that had just sat down. That was enough. Outside, the air was cold and clean. Ronan followed me into the parking lot. "You okay?" he asked. "No, good answer." I laughed then, a broken laugh, but a real one. The story changed after that night, not because everyone suddenly became brave. Families rarely work that way. Some relatives still said I should have handled it privately. Some said grief made me harsh. Some said my parents made a mistake, as if a cruise, a funeral, a money demand, a smear campaign, and a public ambush were one long accidental slip. but the central lie died. They could not say they had supported me. The guest book said otherwise. They could not say they missed the service for a noble reason. The photo said otherwise. They could not say they only wanted to help. Caleb's video said otherwise. Paper does not heal you. But it does stand still long enough for everyone else to stop moving the story. Marcus's restaurant closed that winter. I heard from Lydia that he filed for bankruptcy. Mallory moved in with her parents for a while. My parents blamed me at first, then each other, then the economy, then the bank. Never Marcus. My father retired into silence. My mother retreated from church committees after someone asked, gently and publicly, whether the Making Memories photo had been taken before or after the funeral. She stopped posting for a while. That may sound small, but for my mother, being unseen was almost a punishment. They tried calling. I did not answer. They sent letters. I returned them unopened. My mother came to my house once in September and stood on the porch with a casserole dish, crying into the doorbell camera. Evelyn, I am your mother. I watched the footage later with Ronan beside me. I deleted it. Not because I forgave her, because I was tired of letting her performances live rent-free in my house. Caleb's life insurance did come through. So did a settlement connected to the accident. Money is a strange thing after death. People talk about it like comfort, but it arrives wearing the clothes of what it cost. Every deposit felt like a receipt for a life I would have paid anything to keep. For a long time, I did not touch most of it. Then I remembered Caleb's letter, roof money, food money, choice money. So I made choices. I paid off the house. I put aside enough to never be trapped by one emergency again. I funded a scholarship at Noah's school for kids who loved science and had more curiosity than money. And I started the Miller Safe Road Initiative, a small fund that helped rural schools and parent groups push for better signage, emergency barriers, and truck route safety near dangerous intersections. It was not huge at first. Just me, Ronan, Noah's teacher, and a retired county engineer who had no patience for excuses. But the first time a low-visibility crossing got new warning lights because of our petition, I sat in my truck and sobbed into Caleb's old work jacket. Not because it brought them back, because love needed somewhere to go. Grief with nowhere to go becomes poison. Grief with work becomes a road. A year after the funeral, I opened the green guest book again. I had not touched it since the retirement dinner. I sat at my kitchen table, where Caleb used to fix small appliances just because he could, and I read every name: Ronan Price, Emily Bell, Mr. Alvarez, Jenna Brooks, crossing guard, Caleb's crew, Noah's soccer coach, Lydia Hart, Uncle Paul, who drove from 3 counties away. Names I had barely noticed through the fog, names that had stood where blood did not. On the last page, the funeral director had tucked a folded drawing. I had forgotten it was there. It was from Noah's class, a rocket ship, drawn by 20 small hands, covered in stars. In the middle, someone had written, "For Noah who loved space." I placed the drawing on the fridge, not in a box, not hidden. The first time I walked past it without crying, I felt guilty. The second time, I felt grateful. Healing is not forgetting. Healing is when memory stops arriving only as a knife. Ronan and I became close slowly, not romantically. People always ask that in stories like this, as if a grieving woman must be assigned a new man to prove life continues. No, Ronan became family because he showed up with a toolbox, coffee, and no expectations. He fixed the porch light. He sat through insurance calls. He taught me how to change the air filter Caleb had always handled. He listened when I said I hated everyone and did not correct me. Lydia became family because she told the truth when lying would have been easier. Noah's teacher became family because she still sends me photos of the school garden planted in his memory. Mr. Alvarez became family because every Tuesday he leaves tomatoes on my porch and pretends he grew too many by accident. That is what my mother never understood. Family is not a title you can cash in later. Family is attendance. Family is the name in the guest book. Family is the person who comes when there is no money, no praise, no advantage, and no easy way to make the room comfortable. 2 years have passed now. I still wake early. The house is quieter than a house should be, but not empty in the same way. Caleb's boots are no longer by the door. It took 18 months to move them. I cleaned them first, which makes no sense, then placed them on a shelf in the garage beneath his tool pegboard. Noah's backpack hangs in my office now. Inside are 2 crayons, a library notice, a rock he insisted was from Mars, and a note he wrote in 1st grade. Mom is good at fixing things. I used to read that note and think, not everything. Now I read it differently. Fixing does not always mean restoring. Sometimes fixing means refusing to let a broken thing keep cutting you. I sold Caleb's old truck last spring to one of his crew members. The man cried when he handed me the check. I told him Caleb would be furious if he polished it too much. He laughed, so did I. Lawing still surprises me sometimes. It feels like a visitor who came to the wrong address, then decided to stay for tea. On the anniversary of the accident, I go to the cemetery at sunrise. I bring pancakes for Noah because he loved them, black coffee for Caleb because he drank it like punishment, and white daisies because they were the only flowers Noah could draw without getting mad. I sit between their graves and talk, not about my parents anymore. They do not get space there. I tell Caleb about the road signs. I tell Noah about the scholarship winner who built a model volcano and made it explode across the principal's shoes. I tell them I am still here. That sounds small, it is not. Survival is not just breathing after loss. Survival is refusing to let the people who abandoned you define what your loss meant. I have not spoken to my parents in almost 2 years. People ask if that hurts. Of course it hurts. A closed door can be the right door and still be heavy. But peace is not the absence of pain. Peace is the absence of people who keep reopening the wound and calling it love. My mother sent one letter last Christmas. Lydia warned me it was coming. I almost threw it away. Instead, I gave it to Serena, my lawyer, to read first. She said it contained no threats, only guilt. That sounded exactly like my mother. I read one paragraph. We are getting older, Evelyn. One day you'll wish you had family around you. We can always make more money. But we can't make more family. There it was again. Her favorite line. This time, it did not break me. I took a pen and wrote one sentence at the bottom of the page. Family came to the funeral. Then I mailed it back. No explanation, no argument. No invitation, just the truth. Have you ever had someone use the word family to demand everything from you while giving nothing when you needed them most? If you have, then you know how confusing it feels at first. You keep thinking love should explain itself better. You keep waiting for the apology that would make the pain make sense. You keep wondering if maybe you are too harsh, too cold, too changed. Let me tell you what I learned from a green guest book. A yellow envelope, and a man who loved me enough to keep records. You are allowed to believe attendance. You are allowed to believe absence. You are allowed to stop treating excuses like love. You are allowed to protect what was left for you without turning it into emergency funding for people who skipped your hardest day. My name is Evelyn Hart. I was a wife. I am still a mother. I was the responsible daughter, the useful sister, the quiet fixer, the one expected to carry everyone else's fear while my own world burned down. Not anymore. Now I am the woman who stood in a community hall with 60 witnesses and opened the Green Book. I am the woman who said no without apologizing. I am the woman who learned that grief does not make you weak. It makes every lie around you sound louder. My parents called my husband and son's funeral a sad service. My brother said standing there would not change anything. They were wrong. Showing up changes everything. And when they did not show up, they changed everything too. They just never expected me to write it down.